Hey there, everybody. Are you ready to make some morphs? Some beautiful, beautiful morphing shapes in After Effects. Yes, I absolutely love this part of the process. So I've got a few elements set up here. Okay, and don't forget, of course, that we have all kinds of visual rhetoric elements that we can play with in that shape morph resource on your Milanote. Okay, and I will take us through some of these setups. Okay, so first of all, probably most importantly is our creating shape layers from illustrations. Okay, so I'm in After Effects and I need to bring in my illustrations. So of course we're going to double click and say I have this illustration. So what I absolutely need to have done first is within Illustrator separated these elements. Okay, so you can see here, this is my delivery on moped, little guy doing his delivery, and I have specifically created layers so that when I bring them in After Effects, it will be set up just like this. Okay, so I'm creating new layers and separating all those elements that I intend to animate. All right, so I'm going to select this once, and I need to import as composition retain layer sizes, and click import. And you'll see that if I double click on this guy now, that everything should look just exactly like it did in Illustrator. Okay. Now, if I needed to, for something like this, of course, this is great, and and now I have access to all of these elements. If I wanted to, say, do some manipulating of any of these elements, I can do so. So, say for instance, I want to grab that hair. Okay. And so what I need to do, if I want to specifically animate these elements, is I need to convert to shape layers. Okay, so there we go. All right, so I'm converting to shape layers in order to get access to those anchor points. So I'm going to right click, create shapes from vector layer. And what you'll see is that it's turned off the eyeball. You can go ahead and delete this if you want to clean up your comp. You'll see it's created a shape layer, and we know that by the diamond. And then you can see that in here, depending on the actual content and the complexity of those elements that were drawn in Illustrator, you may get 1 or 2 or 100 groups. And sometimes you might get the color information may have disappeared. And so that there's a whole big process for setting up your work previously in Illustrator and simplifying it to then bring in here. Now, this for me is great. I'm totally happy. I can go to my group here and find my path right there. And then I can start making keyframes if I want. So if I wanted this guy, I'm just going to click path 1 so that I have access to any of these elements. And there you go. I just basically, just like in Illustrator, I can now animate these to my liking. All right, and I'm off to the races. So for instance, for something like this, I probably wouldn't want to, for an illustration like this, I'm going to keep it simple, but perhaps I might go for something different, like this logo, and I'll bring it in. Where did you go? And I'll bring it in, and then say like this black stroke here, I can create shapes from vector layer, and then now I have access to this path, and I can manipulate it, bend it, shape it, morph it, do whatever I want to it. Even give it a little procedural animation, which I'll show you in a bit. Okay, so definitely critically important. Okay, when you do want access to those anchor points to convert to shape layers. Okay, and then we can also do that when we can also take elements a step further. So creating shapes in this case. So for instance, say I go and I want a star, and I draw out my star, and I'll just maybe just make it I don't know, something like that. All right. And right now this comes in as an actual poly star with, you know, animatable elements, which, you know, can help you, can be good. You can animate all of the roundness here and all these elements if you so desire. Make something a little more complex. But what you don't have access to are any of the anchor points. So if you wanted to do that, you would have to right click and say, or right click right on the path one, and right click and say convert to Bezier path. And then you'll see that you actually lose all of those sort of shape options, and now we just have our path. Okay, so now we can go in here and yeah, just manipulate all of these little anchor points to our liking. Okay, same thing with text. Okay, text to path, same thing. So if I needed to manipulate some word, so for instance, I don't know, let's go with the letter V. How about that? Something very simple. And we'll just make it something we can see. And so you can see here, this comes in as text, and we have all kinds of options with text layers. I'll get into those details soon. But if I wanted access, again, to the anchor points to be able to morph this, to manipulate it, I'm going to, again, right-click, create, and create either shapes or masks in this case. So I'm going to create a shape, and our eyeball goes off for that one, and I'll twirl down my elements, and then you can see we have access to all of these things. So then now I could take this, and just going to select the V so that my anchor points are still active or available, but they're not selected. And I don't know, I'll just grab you and go whoop, maybe something like that. And that didn't work because I got too many of you all. Whoop. Sure, why not? Anyway, so now we have complete control. We can do any kind of morphing, manipulating to our heart's content. Okay? And that's how we get the ability to manipulate anchor points. All right, so there's a few ways of setting up and converting, okay, and then being able to get really deep down into there to morph our elements. Specifically here, let's, you know, one of use of this might be to say, you know, go from the word hard. Let's go with there. You look hard. And so I might go right click and create shapes from mask. Twirl down, and now you can see we actually have our letters here. And the good thing about, you know, these elements here is that, like an H, there's only one actual element, but when you get into shapes like the A, it's going to have two because it has one that cuts out from the other one. So you need to make more than one keyframe. All right, so I'm just going to grab all of those elements, make keyframes for it. And now that I have all my elements, I'm going to hit U on my keyboard just to clean that up. And easy ease. And now what I have the ability to do really quickly actually is go get my convert vertex tool and then just go bloop like that. Oh baby, let's see, we'll go select all of you and boop, and same thing with you, select you all Make you nice and round. Now you can see, you know, with some of these it worked quite well. Yeah, pretty good. But maybe this one could be, you know, manipulated a little more. Take that around, take that around. I'm hitting G in order to get that move tool. But yeah, I would just go back through here and sort of round these out. And then, yeah, we would go from actually being hard to being a little soft. All right. So there's, and of course I can change the space, the location, do anything I want to those elements. Okay. So there you go. There's one element or one reason or a few reasons why you might want to get in there and manipulate that up. But I think probably for the most part, this is going to be more important for us. And it's actually, so we're just going to be basically moving one thing in their position, their scale or rotation. And during that movement, we'll change it into something different. And it's actually a match cut, right? And so very simply, if I'm in here and I go to, say, the scale function, I'll just go zoop. Oh, wow, you're just not going to do it. There we go. All right, so I have my my star or my triangle here, and all I'm doing, if I look at my keyframes, is of course a little bit of anticipation, right? A little bit of scaling up to get your attention, and then a very quick scale down. And then I actually what I did was split the layer and changed it to a new shape, but this could be anything. This could be a person's head, it could be a planet, it could be anything you want it to be, but you can see that I'm just matching the animation, okay? And I've actually have a little bit of an overlap too. But yeah, basically just have it scale up a little bit, scale down really fast, and then at the same moment almost it just bursts into a new element, okay? And that is a match cut, or morphing on action, I guess you might call it. All right, so that's with scale. Same thing for, say, position. So let's see here. Let's go. Oh, wow, there we go. So same thing. I've got this element just ready and waiting, and it takes a little bit of anticipation, and then as soon as it's going at its fastest, I just have it changing, literally in a single frame. Okay, I might make this a little faster. Here, let's clean this up. Hit U, and maybe just take these and just bring them in. Maybe even these two, so that we get an even quicker match cut on action. Okay, so even though technically this is not being morphed, the match cut makes it okay for our eyeballs. We're just like, yep, that's cool. I know that star thing turned into the circle thing, and that's okay, even though it was just a single frame. Now you'll notice I haven't done any motion blur. I'm not a big fan of motion blur for vector layers, and I'll get into why soon. But if we just turn that on for this layer, you can see the blur actually, in this case, helps quite a bit, because those two shapes kind of morph, have a little bit of a softer edge to them. So yeah, if it's not anchor or vector-based elements, use motion blur to blur those two together. All right, and then same thing for rotation. So again, we have a little bit of anticipation, and my RAM preview doesn't want to work. There we go. So yeah, just same thing, a little bit of backward rotation, and then just spinning that into the next shape. And so when these elements are at their fastest, it just feels like no problem. Yep, I'm fine. It makes sense to me, especially if it's blurred, I should say. Okay. Very simple, just match cuts. Cutting on action really does make quite a big difference. All right, folks, so yeah, pushing pixels. All right, that's another way to fake a morph. Now, there's all kinds of procedural elements here, right? So let's try this. We'll do a mask morphing. Okay, so from Illustrator to After Effects using the clipboard. All right, so this is an interesting little workflow that can be very interesting. Let's go to, where's my path? I want to, where did it go now? My procedural Illustrator. There we go. Okay, so what I need to do first is, for this element, I'm turning everything else off, I've created a solid layer. Okay, so layer, new, solid. And the color will matter because we're going to be copy pasting from Illustrator. So in this case, I'm going to go to my rabbit and elephant. And in this case, it doesn't matter. I'm not bringing in this Illustrator file. All I'm doing actually is taking the shape of this element and copying it into my clipboard. So Command Control C, back over to After Effects, and paste. Eventually. Yeah. Select the layer, select the path, copy it into your clipboard, and wait for the magic to happen. There we go. Don't know why that didn't happen the first time, but you can see it should come in just about at the same size. You can always just take the whole thing and make it a little bigger. Okay, so this has now come in as a mask. There we go. And if I want to manipulate this or have it animate or morph into a different shape, what I need to do is create a mask path. Okay, so I'll take my mask path starting there, and then I'm going to just go back over to my Illustrator, select this shape, copy it, go back over to here, and with that same path, you have to have the path itself selected. I'm going to paste it in there. And you'll see this will manipulate, go from one shape to the other. Now, the placement of this isn't very good, right? Of course, I want my elephant to be quite big. Okay, nice and big, and of course, easy ease. And we definitely want these to be really, really fast, okay? No one actually wants to watch your procedural animation, okay? And the other thing what I would do is, for this, is not just easy ease. I would actually go and dig into my graph editor, okay? And I'm going to hit the plus arrow to zoom in here. And just pull these two together, pull them two. So we get this really nice high mountaintop, and then we have a little bit of anticipation. Okay, we can pull these apart even now, even a little more, so that we get just a little bit of movement, and then really, really fast on the actual morph. Okay, so I'll zoom back out. So yeah, basically that is how it goes. You go in from one to the other. Now, the one thing that I mentioned here is the first vertex. And you're like, what in the heck is a vertex? Or what's the first vertex? What are you talking about? Well, when you have any kind of shape or any kind of mask, where the drawing was started is your first vertex. And when you have something like this, if I'll just grab mask 1, you can see that it actually comes in, and I'll change my mask color so we can see this better. or maybe we can't. That's not going to work. Let's go with a red. You'll see this extra little box around it, around that first vertex. Okay, and the first vertex is, or where it is extremely important to how this thing is going to actually manipulate and morph. You can see right here, this looks pretty awful, right? I really wouldn't be happy with this if I was my client. So actually, all you need to do is just go and I'm just gonna select in here once, and yeah, you can see it has now a circle on it. Maybe I'll just grab this one, right click, and mask and shape path. There it is. So I've right clicked, mask and shape path, set first vertex. All right, and we're going to get a completely different morph now because of that, where that first vertex is. And really it's just a matter of trying things out. So that might be good. I'm gonna go try this one. Kind of feels a little better that it's kind of both their bums kind of getting shot around. So I like that a little bit. Maybe just try one of these. Anyway, oops, and you can see I made an extra keyframe here. So always when you're doing this stuff, always make sure you're on that keyframe. Yeah, so this is starting to get maybe a little better. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's just sort of trial and error, and hopefully you get something you like. And again, it really makes a big difference to get into that a graph editor and push that Bezier or that hill up, so we get a nice, really fast morph. Okay. Very, very cool for doing sort of procedural style animations. The one tutorial uses map, I think they're the states from a map from the United States, and going from state to state to state. Very, very cool. All right, so let's try another procedural one. Animating trim paths is a lot of fun. Really, very versatile. It's one of my favorites. Okay, and so let's see. I've got this little guy here. Let's have a look. So circle to other circle. Okay, so how does this work? Well, this is actually 3 different objects. Okay, I have the same kind of anticipation with a scale, and then I have this path, and I have a mask so that it's cleaner, and then it goes to the same element there. And this is trim path, so this is a lot of fun to work with. You can just draw any kind of shape you want. Okay, maybe completely right off of it. I'll get rid of the fill because trim paths will not work very well with any kind of fill layer. All right, so in my shape path now, I have the ability, you can see my stroke there. And what I'm going to do is add an animator. That's this little play button here. And I'm going to go to trim paths. There are all kinds in here, all kinds of options, but trim paths is really one of the most widely used. And so if you click trim paths, first of all, nothing happens. But what you get here now is a start, end, and offset. So I can take this down, maybe to there, and I can animate it this way so that it basically just draws itself on. Okay. And I can also animate the start so that it animates itself off. Okay, and just depending on how these are, or how, you know, where the or where these things are is going to show me or tell us where these elements are going. So so I've got a stroke here, and I can dip into this, and you know, now we have a much yep, no sneeze. I can go to round cap, I can have easing, I can have all kinds of elements that make this thing look really, really beautiful. Okay, all sort of procedurally animated. All right, and so that's just the start and end. However, maybe I want just a little bit of, so just one element going here, and you can see that all I need to do is shorten the end, the start and end point, and then animate the offset. Now you can see it kind of keeps going in a loop, and that's why you might have to say, you know, move, here I'll just add more to that. All right, so now I have my offset, it's over there, and I will just have this thing shooting its way through until it gets there. Okay. So really, really fun to do that, to do trim paths, say on shapes, and creating some movement that way. So another use of the trim paths tool is actually on text, and you'll see this quite a bit. So I have my text layer here, and what I want to do is make sure that I just have it on the stroke, right? Because as I said, trim paths on a fill layer does not look good. Okay, so this is text, so it's not going to work. So I need to, again, right-click, create shapes from text layer. And again, go to, and right here, so let's turn that off. I'm going to open up my text layer and go to trim paths. And then for this, I will just do the actual content. So I'll move that to here, and that to down, so now it's going to draw itself on. But you'll see it does them all at the same time, so we want to change this to individually, and then you get a really nice right-on effect. Again, no one wants to watch that, so just make sure it's really, really fast, okay? And you'll get some really nice results out of it. All right, let's keep going here. Other animators for keyframing. There are all kinds of ways to manipulate things. For instance, I have just this box that has a stroke on it, but you'll see that I have added, and I'll just make this a little better, wiggle paths effect. And so that's right here, wiggle paths, and it defaults to something that doesn't look quite good, but you know, you can manipulate this and make it much more exciting, yeah, change that random seed, do all kinds of and change the corner bits, whatever you wanted to animate. Okay, it is really good just to give things a little bit of a wiggle. Okay, to give them life, give them motion. All right, let's keep going. I wouldn't say that too many more of these are very helpful. Repeater is good. You can make patterns with that, but I'll get into that as we go. Pucker and bloat, I don't think really has much place. And then you can actually add more elements on top of this shape layer, but I'll just leave that for now like that. Okay. So yeah, that's the little wiggle paths. Let's keep going here, folks. We're almost there. And one of my favorites, of course, this is After Effects. So let's affect our stuff with After Effects. We'll start with the puppet pin tool, which can be very exciting, very fun, I should say, as far as, you know, just bringing illustrations to life. So in this case, this is a hand-drawn illustration, and so what I've done is I've just sort of cut out one of the pieces and put it on its own layer, and then just did a little bit of manipulating and warping with the puppet pin. So what is the puppet pin? Well, let's say, puppet pin is really good for when you don't have access to the vector graphics, right? You can't turn it into shape layers. So something like if I go to my moped delivery guy and let's just go back to our regular thing here. Here we go. Get out of there. All right. So in this case, maybe I wanted a bit of motion on his on him. Now that's the whole bike. Yeah. So what I would need to do is go up and select my puppet pin tool right up here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is actually create the mesh. Okay. And you can see I have a whole bunch of options here, and I'll put one up on his head, and I'll put one down there just so it doesn't mess up my other thing. You can see I have my mesh on right now, but generally it will default to this. And by creating those thumbtacks, those points, if I hit U, you can actually see we have those keyframes. So now I can just go ahead in time and grab that and manipulate it to my heart's content. All right, just to give it a little bit of life, maybe give him a little bit of like jiggly jigglies, and so yeah, and so by doing that, you can see I've actually created keyframes because I was on a different place in that on my timeline. If you click and hold on the puppet pin tool, you'll see the starch tool, the bend pin, the advanced pin, and puppet overlap. I'll let you do some research for that. But yeah, just know that puppet pin is not for character animation. It's really good for organic movements and getting a little bit of life, especially in illustrations or even videos or images that you don't have access to the vector graphic, to the anchor point. Okay. So that is the puppet pin tool. Now, I actually think if you're using illustrations, probably this is the most important one. Okay, CC Bend It, and it's a very simple. You can see here I have it CC Bend It on the hair of this guy. So if I added a whole bunch of other elements to make this looking like it was flying or moving, this CC Bend It on the hair works quite well. So what is that? What is CC Bend It? Well, I can just get any kind of illustration here and go up to Effect, Distort, and Bend It, CC Bend It. Okay, and it will default to looking a little weird. The start is always below, I guess that's the end, and this is the start, so you have to sort of line it up. Okay, and once you've done that, you don't have to worry about the start and end. All you're doing is actually creating keyframes on this here. Okay, and you get a really nice bend out of it. So yeah, I can go here, and then maybe this thing gets bumped quite forcefully, and then it goes down the other way, and then the other way, and then the other way, and then you can see I'm kind of just bringing this back to normal, and then maybe we go one, and then we go back to normal. And if I play that, boing, 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 boing. Of course, we need to ease those keyframes, right? But yeah, really quite easily, I get some really believable distortion based on a nice, clean bend. So CC Bend It, really good for that, for waves, for elements that you want to bring to life. Okay. Blurs, again, blurs are, blurs are blurs, but we can use it to create some interesting effects. I'll just bring this down to half. And it's added some sound effects because, why not? Okay, and so this one is, if I double click to get in here, this is just a directional blur. Okay, I'll turn that one off for now. And so it's just gonna go sideways. And then I wanted a little bit more out, so I have a radial blur and then an opacity fade as it goes out. So yeah, those are just in blurs. So radial blur, directional blur. If you're just doing a regular blur and you want it to look like an actual video camera lens blur is really, really good, but it's a bit of a system hog, so make sure you need it. Okay, so yeah, blurring works really well. Displacement map. Now this is my favorite. Okay, so let's jump in. The idea here is that, and where did it go? Where did it go? My goodness. I must have deleted it. Displaced. Yes, there it is. Whoop. Now, so what I've done, in this case it doesn't really work because it's the wrong square. So I'll just dig in here. I just have some random element. So this is a solid, okay? So layer new solid. And then I've gone over to effects and presets, backgrounds, and this time I'll choose pixels. And I don't need the tritone. Maybe our contrast can be built up quite a bit. So yeah, it just comes in as this random sort of video. All right, and for this one, you do need to pre-compose that so it'll work. So what I have is the word displaced, okay, the word or whatever element that I want to affect. And then I'm going to go over to Effect, Distort, and Displacement Map, okay? And what you do, you'll see you'll have to point it to the layer that you want it to displace. So in this case, I'm going to change it to the affected one, and I'm also going to change it to its luminance. It defaults to like red and green or something, and then just keyframe the max and whatever displacement. And I think I have, yeah, I did this positional keyframe because depending on how you do it, yeah, you can get this really crazy result. Yeah, we don't need that. But yeah, basically, you can use one element, one layer's brightness or its alpha channel to affect a different layer. Definitely one of my favorites, especially for getting really big, good grit and some excellent little results there out of that. Okay, so Liquify, again, we're getting into the territory where, this is After Effects, so, we can do 1,000 things. But I just wanted to just show Liquify just because it's exactly the same as it is in Photoshop, but we can animate it over time, right? In this case, it's going to take quite a while to do, so and yeah, so it's gonna just go all right, and the way that works really well is that I've actually on this element, oops, that's not the right one, Liquify, I actually have, it just comes in as a distortion effect, so distort and Liquify, okay? And what I've done is I've animated the distortion mesh, but I've also animated the percentage so that we get a really nice entry to that distortion. And yeah, a really nice and easy way to manipulate that. Okay. Flow motion, again, you know, I don't know how helpful this is. It's just another crazy effect. So distort flow motion, and you can just like turn your elements into just the most crazy results here. Really crazy, and again, you'll see it does this where it's like it's not animating outside of the content, right? So what you would do, I might just right click, pre-compose, and then it's not going to let me take them, so I'm going to cut that off, pre-compose, and then paste this on here, and now it'll work. If your effects aren't working properly, you'll get better results if you pre-compose it and then add your elements to it. All right, so all kinds of ways in which we can affect things and play and yeah, change things around. I've got the wave warp here, really simple, straightforward wave warp, but again, lots of uses for it. Okay. So there you go, my friends. All kinds of ways in which we can manipulate, morph, fake a morph, change, convert, and create our visual rhetoric elements. Okay. So thank you for your attention, and happy morphing, my friends. And we'll see you in class. Cheers.